And we're going to start our meeting. Sorry for our tardiness, just a last minute thing.
I'm taking my purple with me.
Dr. Kozar, you could lead us in prayer, see.
Be glad to, Mr. Chairman. May we bow with you. Lord God Almighty, we're so thankful for the beauty of this day. So thankful, God, for all of your loving kindness and your tender mercies, for the bounty of your blessings you bestowed upon us as individuals and as a county. We pray your guidance in this meeting, and we thank you for your servants who have gathered to come and share a plan that will help all of our people. So use us now to your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Who's downstairs for the pledge of allegiance? And we're going to Sanders, look that direction right there.
Oh, there it is.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jimmy, this is
Okay. So I want to, before we start, ladies, just would like to make a comment. Special meeting, this is our final workshop of the plan. I'd like to thank Parks and Greenway Recreation Advisory Committee, led by Chairman Michael McFadden and Karina Weichel and Justin Jurgensen, for all your hard work on the master plan. This time I'd like to call Justin Jurgensen, Senior Transportation Plan for Granville County, for a brief summary of the matter and to introduce project manager from John McAdams Company. And before that's done, before this meeting is over, Dr. Kozar and I will have to leave, and Commissioner Karen, if you pick up from that point, we're going to have to go to the school board meeting in between our meetings to say goodbye for our board to Dr. McLean, and so then we'll be back before that meeting. If we're not back, Commissioner Karen will start that meeting with the item that we discussed with Commissioner Jay before the beginning of the meeting. So with that being said, Justin, fine. Thank you.
Just like to excuse Michael McFadden, our chair. He tested positive for COVID, so he's.
Oh, we're glad it's not here.
I think we're glad he's not here, but sad that he's not here. I'd just like to extend his apologies. Just barely texted me about it. So we've been working on this Parks, Greenways, and Recreation Master Plan for 9-10 months now. We've done a lot of data collection, community engagements. So tonight, briefly, we're going to go over some of that data that we've collected, things that we've heard from the community, and then we're going to work into the recommendations, and that'll be the bulk of our meeting tonight. And I will turn it over now to Shweta and Grayson, who are consultants. Let them have it.
Thank you so much, Justin. Good evening, everyone. Glad to be here. Back again, we here a few months back, and we went to the black hole. You both saw us for some time, and now we are back. Quite a bit of information to share with you, and other exciting days in terms of recommendations that will shape the future of Granville County's parks and recreation for the next 10 years. So before we get started, I just wanted to see who all were there for our first work session. See how many faces in here. So just for you, a quick background on the first meeting that we had. It was a very informal meeting, listening from all of you to hear about the aspects, the strengths of Granville County, what is the recreation bringing to the community, how people are using it, and then findings, the strengths and the weaknesses, talking with our drawing board, and then we included other data collection from our typical conflicts and planning process. And so that's what we are here to share with you today. The last meeting we had a lot of toys that we all were part of. We shared the toys, and it's a little more serious business. But we still have some interactive components in our meeting today. So for today, we'll share where we are in the process. A lot of assessment findings that we have done up till now. Community engagement, we have included several community touch points throughout the process. So we'll share those findings with you all. And then finally, we have our draft recommendations that we'll share. So this graphic shows the overall process for the project. There was a lot of initial research, data collection, review of previous documents that was involved. We have a scientific survey and several community engagement touchpoints. And then all of that information led us to develop some themes that we extracted from talking with you all, with the staff, with the community. And those themes they led us to the recommendations, which we'll share with you today. And then we want to hear from you all on how we can implement those recommendations. What are the action items that we should consider that the county can continue to implement over the next 10 years? So once we have those action items, we'll collect them from you all, we'll get back to our drawing board again, and develop the final master plan that we'll bring back to you for adoption. All right, so basically, take it in.
Thank you. So one of the early things we did in this process is look at the other planning documents that relate to your park system. So at the very top, we have the 2017 plan, and that all this work is going to replace that plan. We took a close look at the county plans with your strategic 5-year plan and the future comprehensive plan. Also took a dive into the towns and cities that have adopted recreation plans to see where there are synergies between those. Demographics is also very important, so we want to understand where you are and where you're headed with your residents. So your population growth is 11.7%. And so you'll have a big increase by the year 2032. As Shweta mentioned, this is a 10-year plan, so all these demographic projections are over a 10-year period. To give you some context, the U.S. has a growth rate of 0.7%. The state has a growth rate of 0.95%, so almost 1%. So you all are almost 12%, so a lot of growth. Looking at your age, so you have a increase in demographics, and the age group of over 55 is getting larger. The youth segment is getting smaller, and then between 25 and 59 is getting smaller, except if you break it out further, in that ages 35 to 44 are growing. And so you can see with your median age being a little bit above the state, that reflects also that growing population over 55. Your diversity is increasing. So there has been a growth in the racial segments that are white, that are some other or two or more, and also the Hispanic population is growing. Household income. So around 50% of your population makes below $75,000 a year, but there is a small increase of 1.7% that is growing, which doesn't seem like a lot, but over a 10-year period, that will really start to make a difference. So all that to say, more income is anticipated, that your residents will have more income than they do now in the next 10 years. It's also very educated. So with that, it relates back to the income levels. It also relates to more disposable income and residents wanting more diversity in what they can do in their recreation programs and amenities. But it also want to keep in mind the balance of providing to those that are below poverty level. Also, you've had about, or anticipated, a 10% decrease in your houses with children. So in 2010, it was about 31%, and in 2031, it's going to be about 21%. Special populations. This is broken out into different age categories, and the yellow is over 64 years old. So you can see in these different areas with special populations that population is the highest. And so as you're looking to improve your existing facilities and or create new ones, making sure that those are designed to accommodate those with special needs. And also the programming aspect can go with that. So community engagement. We've had a great time with you all. I'm going to jump a little bit to just some pictures. Last fall and summer, we went to 2 festivals, and that was a lot of fun to meet people where they are and hear what they have to say about your park system. Very positive feedback there. We met with some teams. That was great as well, and they provided some great honest feedback. One of the biggest things we took away from them is that transportation is a barrier to participating and accessing the parks. We've met with you all a couple of times, and of course staff as well. I'm going to spend some time talking about the statistically valid survey. So that is mailed out to, and that is done by a sub-consultant, and that is a survey mailed out to households in the county, and they guarantee that it reaches your demographics. The sampling matches the demographics of the county. And so we look at those results to help us with where we get to in the recommendations of this plan. So 79% use the GAP the most, followed by the Expo and Convention Center. 72% use Granville County as the recreation provider, followed by 26% religious providers. Barriers to use, 42% was lack of not knowing what was offered. So that reflects that communication would help with the residents in their participation, followed by lack of interest and busy schedule. And the last one was, or the lowest one showed here, is 12% is desired program or facility is not offered. So this was interesting too. We asked them their willingness to pay more taxes. And it was a little bit split, if you will, with 17% said they were willing to pay $20 or more a month. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. I probably missed it. The community engagement is based on how many people actually interview, responding to it.
With the survey?
Yes.
Yeah, 3. I have it handy, but I can't. I'll get back to it some specific time. So 17% said over $20 a month. 17% also said $1 to $4. 22% were 5 to 9, and 8% were 15 to 19. But if you combine 15 to 19 per month and over 20 per month, that got you to 25%. So while things were kind of split a little bit, that's one way to look at it, is that 25% were willing to pay between that $15 to $20 range. We also asked them about the financing methods. So the top one says, pay a slight increase in taxes to support development of new recreation facilities. And that came out to be about 50% are very willing or somewhat willing. And then also for paying slight increases in taxes to support expanded recreation facilities was also at right about 50%. So those different ways are indicating that people are interested and willing. They want to see the program expanded and approved. The priority investment rating. This is a tool that looks at where investments should be made. So it measures the importance that residents place on facilities, amenities, and programming. And then it also compares that with where they have unmet needs for those things. And the five that rose to the top are an indoor aquatic facility, greenway trail system, dog park, water access with kayak and swimming, and shooting sports and archery range. So I'm going to turn it back over to Shweta.
Going back to the assessment components, there are four elements that components that we assessed, which included the existing parks and facilities. Then we have several calculations where we benchmark the community against the National Recreation and Parks Association standards. We have some assessment findings for greenways, and then finally for funding and operations. So we'll walk through these one by one. Currently, Granville County has pretty diverse recreation amenities and facilities. 95 acres of developed parkland, but more than 1,500 acres in the nature preserves, which is a great asset for the county, especially when you have development pressures that are going on around you. Having these nature preserves and escape areas is a really great asset. About 5 miles of trails split between the county and the municipal agencies. GAP is a really great asset with all the recreation facilities and sports programming that happens there. And then finally, the unique amenities that you have in terms of playgrounds and shelters, amphitheater, fitness area, and fishing pier, cornholes, and things like that. So just creating a wide variety of amenities that we have set the stage right for the future with these facilities. Overall, we visited your parks for almost 3 days and your greenways. We looked at all of these facilities very carefully and very impressed with the level of cleanliness and maintenance that you have at these places. There are, of course, all of these parks are very well loved and very well used. So there are still some challenges with places like Wilton slopes where you have some deferred maintenance needs and needs for replacements and renovations. Overall, the parks seem safe and welcoming for all the community. And also, as parks get used more, they start to age, and so there is a need to start proactively for those replacement schedules. And then also we observe that environmental sustainability is also observed at these parks, the native vegetation and just making them attractive for people to enjoy the landscape around you. Nature preserves, as I said, again, great asset for the county, especially for residents who are outside of your county can come back to these places and immerse themselves in nature. There is also an opportunity for the county to enhance these assets, so more people are aware of these facilities and we can bring back more visitors, non-residents, and let them enjoy these ecological corridors. And then there is also opportunity to have them connected to greenways and trails to have a nice ecological county. Level of service, so I have several of these level of service calculations, and this is the benchmarking that we do with the National Recreation and Parks Association standards. Consider these as just the benchmark for quantitative data tools. These are not to be considered more in a myopic way, but it could be more contextualized for Granville County. So even if we say we are comparing against all of the counties in the United States, Granville County is unique in itself. So we want to make sure that the recommendations that come out of it are unique for your county and not just representing or comparing apples to apples with what's happening nationwide. So with that caveat, the first level of service calculation that we have is for the county-owned parkland. So what we are doing here is comparing the parkland acres for 1,000 people. The county currently has 1.53 acres of parkland per 1,000 people. And our PSAs, on an average, a rural community within the population that similar to Granville County, the level of service is 4.7 acres per 1,000 people. So if the county decides they want to increase the level of service to 4.7, you will need 231 extra acres over the course of next 10 years. If you maintain 1.53 acres, so for the population increase for the next 10 years, you only have to add additional 12 acres of parkland. County residents also enjoy the municipal parks around here. And so if we consider municipal acreage within your park system, then your acreage starts to decrease. So over the period of next 10 years, if you maintain NRPA's level of standard of 4.7 acres, then you need additional 110 acres in parkland. Or because of the additional parkland, your current level of service is 2.49. So that would, if you maintain that, then your park acreage for the next 10 years will be additional 26 acres. A lot of data points. If you have questions, we can walk through those at the end of this presentation.
Are we going to get this in writing?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I don't have to take as many notes.
The next one is the benchmarking for sports amenities. Again, this is just a quick comparison for quantitative data. It needs to be, again, contextualized based on how the community needs change over the period of next 10 years. So based on that, for the future population, you might be looking at additional multi-purpose fields, one field, one extra soccer field, one tennis field, one basketball court, and then one volleyball court. These are just some of the sports courts that we have compared the county against. There might be other new sports that might be coming up that people want to play, like lacrosse and other sports. So those are the things that we will continue to engage your community, connect with them, and find out where the integration trends are going for the next 10 years. Again, so going back to these key findings for level of service, right now, county has the lower level of service for overall plan, and there is a need for additional parkland. How much is a question, and we'll lean on you all to guide us on what the recommendation should be to include the level of service for this master plan. Again, conservation land is a great asset, and we want to leverage that for bringing in more revenue and more visitors to the county. And then finally, the need for additional sports court, just keeping that in mind as we start to either develop new parks or new facilities and connecting back to the community to see what they really want to include for the future. One of the components that Jason had touched base on in the PIR rating that came from the scientific survey was the need for an aquatic facility, and we recently found out that there is a partnership opportunity that might be coming up with the local municipal agencies. So that could be one of the recommendations that we could add with this master plan. All right, so the next level of service is understanding the geographic access to the parks from the whole community. So the first map, and sorry, we will be giving these maps to you also if it's not really clear. You will get them in just a little bit. So what you see on the screen, the first map shows all the county parks and the walking distance of 10 minutes. How many parks are accessible for residents within 10 minutes? It's not a 5-minute drive, or 5-minute drive to just the county parks. The next map is 5 to 20-minute drive to all of the parks. That includes the county parks as well as the municipal parks. So based on these two maps, you can see if we only consider the county maps, there is a big gap in the northwestern side and northeastern side. There's a concentration of parks, which in the southern side, and some municipal parks on the bottom. So when we look at all of the policies, the gaps are very evident like these areas and like over there. So we cannot consider the county in isolation. You have Durham County on one side, Wake County on the other. So we looked at specifically for the southern side, how Wake County plays part in providing access to the parks. And so on this map, you can see there's quite a bit of Wake County facilities that are available to residents from the southwestern side to Wake County parks. And so this one is also 5-minute to 20-minute drive. So there's a good connectivity for Wake County parks. The next component we assessed was understanding the growth of the county and equity in terms of health vulnerability and social vulnerability. And then comparing them against where the growth is happening within the county. So the most vulnerable population in terms of health are these light areas. The light areas are where the less vulnerable population is. This one is the least vulnerable, and then as you get the darker, these are the most vulnerable populations. And then same for the social vulnerability. That portion right there, that's where most of the social vulnerability is. So social vulnerability is calculated based on the Center for Disease Control's indicators that includes minority population, income levels, people who have access to vehicles, and a couple more. And so based on that, we superimposed all of these maps together to really understand where the county is showing the need for equity-based recreation amenities and new parks. So based on that, you can see there is a need for parks in the northwest area of the town based on the higher social vulnerability and high health vulnerability. And then the growth intensity on the southern side is also is showing the need for additional expanded parkland and future recreation amenities.
What do you define as the southern part of the county? What do you define as the southern part of the county?
What do we define?
Yeah, geographic area. What communities are the southern part of the county, which?
So, yeah. So, in terms of dealings for
It makes sense.
We're having an issue.
So, dealings that you have the NRPA saves 7 miles trails for the population that Granville County has. Right now, you have about 300 complete days. And so as the population continues to grow, you have to provide 4 additional miles to feed days. If we include the mileage from the municipal agencies, there is only additional 1.72 miles of feed days in the period of next 10 years. So I think it's playing the function of the population and the rural nature of the county in providing the greenways connectivity within the region. So greenways needs assessments. So our team, we have a dedicated greenway team who looked at all of your previous plans for greenways, trails, bike bed plans, transportation plans, East Coast Greenway plan, and then the trails within the municipal agencies. So the first map, again, we'll provide you these in a little bit, but this map shows all of the previous recommendations that were made across the county. And so then they looked at what are the latest needs of the community. And so based on the community engagement feedback that we received, there is a need to connect to the local destinations like schools and commercial areas, neighborhoods within the county, and provide also an opportunity for multimodal connectivity. So people can walk to places, they can bike to places, scooter, things like that. And so based on those needs, they have developed a new Greenway Network recommendation map. So we'll share that with you. This map is based on what is realistic. We can put lots of green lines on the map and say this all needs to be done, but really what is feasible over the period of next 10 years. So the more destinations you connect to, the more areas that are really in need of infrastructure and connectivity, those are the areas that will get funded on a priority basis. So on this map, you will see a lot of recommendations are providing those regional connectivity corridors, leveraging the East Coast Greenway components, so north-south connections, east-west connections, connections to local municipal agencies, regional connections that are outside of the county, and then destinations that are really important for the residents within the county. When we go back to these funding and operations component, one of the things that we have observed with the data that we received for the past 3 years of revenue and expenditures, there is a need to develop a cost recovery policy for your programs. I know county provides a lot of funding for the municipal agencies. There's also an opportunity to start thinking about some revenue generation for parks and recreation through these, so they can self-sustain a little bit, and also providing those services at supported rate for the overall community or affordable rates. And then we looked at the need for additional staffing as the county recreation system continues to grow. There is also a need for clear organizational structure that can support the overall system. One of the things that we really noticed was the strengths of the current small department that currently supports the parks and recreation, and the collaboration that happens across the system. So level of service for staffing, again, Granville County currently has 4 staff members, which is 0.6 full-time staff members for 10,000 residents. And our PA says, 5.3 staff members per 1,000 population, per 10,000 population.
So I just want to point out, it's actually 75 full-time staff, because we didn't get our business coordinator within that number.
Oh, yeah.
So just pointing that one out.
Perfect. But still, I think the 5 to we are still at quite a bit of score level for supporting the system. So all of that data and assessment and analysis led us to develop 3 themes: balanced, connected, and thriving. So Jason is going to take it over from here and walk us through some interactive elements.
Yes. So we're going to pass out to you 2 packets. One has a series of maps, so we can come back to the question about maps, and hopefully you can, representing the information at a county level is difficult on a letter-sized piece of paper and on a projection. But hopefully this will be helpful. And then we also have copies of the PowerPoint presentation for you to reference as we go through these. So our 3 things: balanced. You can go ahead and start passing them out. Yeah, but the reason why we hadn't, to be quite honest, we hadn't passed them out yet is because we wanted you all to listen to our spiel. And now you have that information to reference back. Thank you. Thank you. Right. So how do we connect a balanced, connected, so the first principle of
I'll go around the back so you don't have these cords.
recommendations that we've come up with are ensure balanced geographic distribution of parks, facilities, and open space within the growing suburban areas, as well as rural, remote areas of the county, and working collaboration with the county planning department to coordinate land management policies in rural and suburban areas of the county. So what we're going to do is we're going to give y'all about 2.5 minutes to think about the studying school recommendation. And you can also find it in the presentation and your appendix is on page 17 at the bottom right. So think about this. We have about 2.5 minutes. And then on your Post-it, we want you to write down what the action items would be to get you to implement this. What will be important is that you should isolate the wall by putting the 1.1.1 because that's the first recommendation, so that when we gather these Post-its from you all, we know what you wrote and what it can correspond to. I know I just gave you a lot of information. So you can make.
Okay.
Huh?
Yes.
One,
You say
1.1.
park, or ball field, soccer field, we're strictly talking about county, not schools. They're not, the count, the numbers is not included.
So you're
With the action that the county should take to ensure that the balanced distribution of facilities and the state. So we looked at our assessment for level of service council returns. For example, one of the recommendations on action items could be adopt the level of service X amount of acres per acre per 1,000 people to ensure there is equal geographic distribution. Or provide a park within a certain area within the county to ensure there is equitable distribution. I will only give you a couple of examples, but I really need to offer these should be the recommendation of the action items.
And I think we need a little of a temperature gauge. It's hard to tell from your faces if you're with us and you know what your charge is, or you need a little more explanation.
I think we need more explanation.
Okay. Don't be shy if you need more.
We need more.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to know more what they want us to do. Okay, actually, Drew, if you wouldn't mind, is that microphone where we can turn it on? Because I'm having a hard time hearing, and I know we have several hearing aiders here, and if I can't hear it, they can't hear.
Or just, yeah, say, come on. Yeah. Yeah.
Might, maybe so, but I'm, like I say, I have no idea what you've been saying. I can hear you, but I can't hear, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Page 16?
So when you get the full master plan that says what you're going to do for the county, and as it relates to parks and recreation, it will be organized by having these guiding principles and then the recommendations and then action items. So what are the things that the county is going to do to implement these recommendations? So for the one that's up on the board, ensure balanced geographic distribution within the growing and suburban and rural areas. So the maps that we showed you where you have access to parks currently, and then what is missing. So an action item could be, we're going to have a park within a 10-minute drive to every resident in Granville County.
So this is where I need some help. Are you identifying all parks, regardless of their municipal, regardless if they're, are you just identifying county locations?
We did both. So one map, this is just county, and the second one includes the municipal.
Right.
So you can see you have a greater level of service naturally if you include your municipal funds.
And on the county front, it doesn't matter if it's 5 square feet or no square feet. It counts as a park, right?
Yes. So there's a few ways to measure it. So the stuff that Shweta went through with the level of service, and it talked about how many acres of parkland you have per 1,000 people.
Right.
If you want to use that as your measurement, a small park doesn't move the gauge very much.
Right.
However, it would, on those first two maps, help with the driving distance.
Right.
So there's a bunch of different ways that we're looking at it. So, this is where we want to hear from you all on how you want to move forward. What are your action items going to be in order to get this thing implemented? So without implementation and action, this plan is not going to go very far. So what are the action steps that you all want to take to get towards these recommendations?
In other words, you can think about it like your shopping list, right? So for the next 10 years, you're making a shopping list with a checkbox. And you're saying, okay, which one of these recommendations we are implementing, and what are the actions you need to take to make sure that your shopping list is accomplished. Does that make sense? A little bit?
So we have come up with some implementation items that we think should be in the plan, but we don't want to influence what you think. I think it's really
Yeah,
close.
that's
They're
what
getting
we are
at
trying to
here.
do.
If you want to park in a certain specific area, write that down. If you want us to have a goal of 100 more acres in the county, write that down. If you want it to just be 10, write that down.
You know what confusing me, and I could be wrong about this. When you include every park, every greenway, everything in the county, we're tasked with everyone in the county, but municipalities aren't. And so I would love to see a map that designates where our county facilities are on here.
So that's what it
Specifically.
shows. Like all your county facilities right now are concentrated within this
Well, how
area.
did you see that?
So these tiny little things,
I cannot see that.
yeah.
Yeah, they're very hard to see.
Areas.
So can we get a map that actually can identify those?
Sure.
A microphone.
Glasses, a magnifying glass.
So you hit.
So it's county owned property.
So how about let's move forward and see if maybe another recommendation can get us towards that.
I think that might be a good way. We can give the action items, but maybe let us know the recommendations that we have come up with. Do you agree with those? And is there anything that you would like to add to that?
I would like to see what is y'all recommendation to us telling us this is how we need to proceed.
Okay.
I
And
know
then
what
we,
you're getting at, but I didn't see anything identifying that huge growth area back there, southern end of the county.
that's what
No data of the population that's with it.
Right. Yeah.
Nor do I know, and again, please forgive me, but how many people actually responded to the survey? That's huge.
So the goal was to get 300 and they received 411. So the confidence rate of it is 95% level of confidence.
And how many potential participants were there? 60,000.
To look at how many they mailed out.
They,
But I'd have
they usually mail out like 2,000 to 3,000 people at least.
that's countywide, right?
That's counting. Yeah.
Okay. And you only receive 400 and some back.
just curiosity, the statistic you heard, the 3,000 are a representative sample, but the 400 respondents, there may be some sort of selection bias, people who are interested in park and recreation topics, maybe in the response. Great.
Can you see what they're?
I don't think I got it.
So the 3,000 that, 3 or 4,000 that are sent the survey are presumably a representative sample of the county population. I don't know how they listed it, but
They are.
it should be a relatively representative sample. But I think if they respond, they may not be.
They do. So what they do is they come check back with where and they map it. So they're asking that it is some consultant. They back check it institute. They back check it with the demographic data to make sure it's racially and there was generally yeah.
So on your very first map, on the park identification, and I know Justin could probably help me with this, you're looking at greenways that we don't necessarily own, but we have partnership with like land conservancy groups like Charter River Land Conservancy, as well as like land that we've got deeded with, again, conservation down in the southern end. But are you looking at like the Gauntlet, which is in the southern end from a greenways perspective, or are you looking at the Butner Greenway in Butner that's behind the apartment complex? What do you classify as? Okay.
Greenway is the cross city trail into the greenway between the Butner Stem Elementary Middle School, the greenway that's in Butner on Lion Station Road. Those are what we're considering greenways.
Okay.
The nature trails fall into what's out in the nature, not on the county.
Okay, so on the parks one, and that's where I'm getting a heartburn on. The county owns conservation property, right? There's not a single park south of 56, is there? In the county?
Right.
So this map indicates that there's two.
That,
We have Wilton
that's
Slopes.
indicating by the nature.
Okay.
One of the leading, just what a park is, what are you considering anything to active or passive, either passive activity would be considered a park?
That's correct. Yeah.
Because we don't have a single ball field. So,
Right. Other times.
So net it out for me. We actually own the Gap and Wilton Slopes.
Correct.
Okay, then we have some greenways, which is like what you just mentioned, the cross country trail and whatever. So we have two parks, Wilton Slopes and the Gap.
And those are both in the south end of the county.
They are in the south end of the county. So you're getting, I mean, from a perspective of the county owning two pieces of property, there's nothing north of the Gap. Right. And then what they own in the south from the Gap, further directionally south from the Gap, is Wilton Slopes. So Wilton's getting dinged because they got Wilton Slopes.
On that metric in that specific map,
Okay.
yes.
Just checking, making sure.
We have these
Right.
and it's just one figure out what you're gonna do. It's a lot of information.
Making sure we own, I know what we own.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
I want to go back to the action. But I'm trying to go in maybe is that what I'm hearing you say essentially is that an action item could be for the county to provide parkland in the north part of the county.
Well, what I'm saying is we've already used our planning and zoning tools to require 10% active recreation space in each new subdivision, as well as a $500 per lot assessment in each new subdivision, which will bear money in any growth areas. Those areas that are required for 10% active recreation space for the subdivisions don't necessarily need to be publicly active for anybody not in that subdivision. So they're private parks, which kind of sucks for the people that live next door. But that $500 could be Bueno for the people within that geographic location. Where your population growth is occurring is not the north, where there's nothing. So when you have a little bit of something and it's a high growth area, those people scream and yell, even though they have no idea about the people who have zero up in the northern part of the county. So squeaky wheel gets the grease. The northern people aren't screaming because there's not new people up there, and they've got community associations, and they're used to not having anything in there because it's like that's what they know, and the new people are from elsewhere, and they want stuff. I look at it like that. We want stuff, right? We moved to the country to get away from everything, but we want stuff. So
Yeah. It's not saying anybody is wrong in asking for what they need, because high growth areas definitely need more parks and recreation facilities, because you cannot count private developments and their individual recreation amenities for other people that are outside of that development.
right.
At the same time,
There's 2 really nice lap pools in southern Granville County.
correct, yeah.
It's just that they're in private homeowners associations.
Considerations like equity and people who don't have access to any of these facilities, they cannot afford it, then as an agency, where does that stand as a priority to start investing? And is there a way you can educate the public about that need and figure out other ways where you can provide some other components where the high growth area is happening? I think it's a matter of the county prioritizing what needs to be done. And it's not an easy question for sure, but I think that's what you would have to figure out. Is equity important? And we need to provide something for those people who don't have anything. And it could be any component. One of the things that we discussed was right now the northern area doesn't have developed infrastructure. So teens from those areas or elderly population from those areas rely on public transportation to come to Oxford and other areas to enjoy those facilities. Can we provide something to enhance that experience? Can there be more transportation for those people to come and enjoy the existing facilities that are within 15-20 minutes? The only thing is they don't have means to get to. And maybe that starts to help alleviate that gap a little bit while you are providing for the new population who is getting attracted to Granville County and contributing to the growth. Does that?
I'm with you.
Yeah, you with it, but I'm not. I'm the one that don't have nots.
Yes.
I'm the one that have nots where I live. I'm not gonna drive to Oxford to bring my child to Oxford to play T-ball or softball. Because by the time I still pay my taxes though. But you know, I'm not at the distance I live. I'm not gonna bring my child and ones that up in that way, it's not gonna bring the child here. What we did have was the school, and we played basketball because they had a basketball court over there and a softball field and everything. And across that road from it, we got the community club have walking tracks and everything and playground for the kids. So, but we still not gonna bring our children back to Oxford. That's all to it. Why would I bring my child back to Oxford to play T-ball and I'm gonna pay double the price? You feel me?
Oh, I'm with you. Because
Okay.
you got to drive from Youngsville to Butner to play T-ball, and it's double the price.
You know, and that's why you know a lot of people, you don't get that from the north end of the county.
develop organizations that can help communities uh, with income with scholarships or affordable participation in programs with lower fees. That could be one of the action items that we can include, and that's something that you will have to collectively agree upon. But unless you put it down on the paper, it cannot make it into the plan. So talk about it, write it down, and then we can include it in the plans for you to continue those discussions for future implementation.
Now, I also want to say, like, recognize this is a lot of information and this is complex, and we've spent, almost a year working on developing this. We'll come and present it in an hour. It's a lot. So we wanted to try to make this digestible information, but recognize that it's complicated, complex, and there's so many layers to it. So we talked a lot about our first theme, but we also, we have 15 minutes left. So can we talk about the other two themes as well, which are connected and thriving? So connecting the system together through the greenways. Wade mentioned the transportation opportunities. I also want to touch on partnerships. We did a survey with the elected officials where we looked at the existing plans that you all have. And for instance, the indoor aquatic facility, is there an opportunity to partner there? Not just there, in many ways. But thinking about if you do want to continue to work on those partnerships, what are the resources that the county is willing to put forth in order to make those happen? For instance, will there be more staffing? Will there be a department that is created? So you're a growing county, and if you want to meet the needs of and the desires of the residents, is it possible that creating a parks and recreation system will help those things become a reality? So I'm jumping a little bit, but I want to put some food out there for us to continue to talk about. Also with some of our interviews that we did and hearing from the staff that are working, and also from the residents, is there's confusion on who does what, because there isn't a holistic department that's created to provide those things. So could there be some efficiencies there and help that help what the county is providing with Parks and Recreation if there was a department? For instance, build a volunteer program. Volunteer programs are wonderful things to have, and they can really be great assets, but it also takes staff in order to implement those things. So is that something that a focus area that you all want to go to? Also, we heard in our research about, and from you all when we met with you the first time, about the recreation tournaments that you all host and how that's an economic driver. And is that an area that you want to continue to have action in and continue to grow and support? So I just threw out a bunch of things because I want us to, we're getting short on time, and I want us to see what we can have some more discussion around.
I can imagine that if we were to increase our parks and recreation size or the size, that the staffing wouldn't go hand in hand with it. That you wouldn't say, let's add 150 acres of parks, greenways, softball fields, whatever, and not be prepared that you don't do that.
One of the things that we also heard in the scientific survey was majority of the people do not participate or don't use parks and recreation facilities was because they don't know about it. And so how can we create more of that branding for the county parks, more marketing, more awareness within the community about what the county is doing. Not only providing the physical facilities, but also providing money to support the facilities within the municipal agencies. So there are a lot of components that go hand in hand in terms of creating that visibility for counties and recreation. So one of the recommendations that we have is developing the Parks Department. We'll start really bringing a lot of these services under one umbrella, developing the key performance indicators. So people will be who will be under Parks and Recreation will have the master plan in their hand. They will have the recommendations. They will have those shopping lists of action items, and every year they will be walking through that and checking the boxes that says, okay, we acquired the parkland, we built 1 mile of greenway, we hired a new staff. So that can only happen when you have a clear organizational structure who's working together to develop this system. So if you have any ideas on that and how we can move forward, I think that would be really helpful.
One thing that I'm interested in that relates maybe to the equity comment is that there are quite a few kinds of athletic facilities that increasingly can cover some or all of their costs for paying customers. Of course, you have some residents who maybe you would want to be able to use those kind of facilities who can't afford to use it. So I'm kind of curious. I was just actually checking some of the facilities that my kids end up playing soccer or swimming at or whatever, trying to figure out how many of them were publicly owned or subsidized and how many were sort of privately owned. And it's kind of a mixed bag, and I'm curious, I think there's so much on the kind of actual and implied wish list that it's pretty clear the county and the municipalities are not going to be able to afford to do all of these things in the short run. So for me, it's an interesting question. What kinds of facilities do you all think might be in the category of sort of private entities might, with maybe a little bit of urging or help, be willing to open up some of these kinds of things? So in which cases might there be a kind of a win in that respect versus what might be the kinds of things that really would only happen if the public sector were to invest a significant amount of money?
So one of the recommendation that we have included is that so if the county and municipal agencies want to partner with private providers, there could be a way where you develop that MOA, memorandum of understanding with them, that says people who are willing to pay and afford to pay will pay the full price, but with the proper documentation, you will have opportunity for people who cannot afford it to either have a scholarship to participate in those programs, or you will have affordable rates. A lot of cities around the country do that, where they will have partnerships with YMCAs where they have affordable fee rates for people who can. And so you provide them the documentation, your income documentation, and we will include you in these programs.
You talked about the aquatic center. Did you have an idea of who, what, where, how?
So some municipalities in our survey mentioned the aquatic center. And so that was a recommendation that we partner with municipalities to meet our needs as well. I don't think at this moment in time there's anything official in any municipality. They don't have the groundwork laid yet, but that was mentioned in those surveys that we did with the municipal elected officials that they also want to see that, and so they're maybe for partnership with.
Because I see, especially with the senior citizens, that's one of the best ways for them to get exercise is in a pool. And, here we are, we're building a new center up north, and we're not even thinking about putting a pool in up there. Or, and in Oxford, where would you put a pool? I mean, that's not even a possibility. And even in Creedmoor, there's a possibility down there, but that's just the senior citizen centers. That's not for the kids to go play in, like the splash park they want down in Creedmoor. There's just so many things that I'm seeing tied up, and I'm not really hearing or seeing any suggestions that, I guess I'm wanting more from you all. That's what I'm asking.
So we found it interesting to learn that there is a department in the county that provides services for the seniors. A lot of times, those that provide services for seniors and have senior centers are part of a Parks and Recreation group. So it's more common that a county or a municipality will have a parks division, and a subset of what they provide includes senior centers and the services specifically for seniors. So I think there's a lot to think about there, and I would also go back to the question of how interested are you all in creating a Parks and Recreation division? And how do you foresee, if so, how do you foresee that would happen?
Raymond can handle all of it. Never mind. We don't need that. No, I'm just teasing. Raymond's going, I'm running now.
In creation of that, are you saying you would recommend creating senior services for that group?
Well, I think it has to work for you all.
Well, because she was saying that she said that they've seen it in more common that senior service is not freestanding departments covered by a park. That would be culture shift.
Yeah, and so that's where we can make recommendations, but we were wanting to hear from you on your what you think is a good recommendation, because you all live and breathe this, and you know the politics and the culture, and we want things to be recommended that are realistic and that people are going to have the appetite. So kind of what I'm beating around the bush is, could you use the existing senior services division to create a Parks and Recreation department that also then includes those senior services? But I was hesitant to say that because I don't know if that will fly, or if people are just going to, be like, pump the brakes, and then, that's not a good suggestion for your community. So that's why we're trying to hear from you on how you imagine, these things to come to be.
Like I was speaking earlier, each and every one of our departments are so already bogged down with, everything. I think to ask those departments to do anything else is really going to become a problem. And that's my personal opinion, because I know the senior citizen centers, they're racing just to keep up with what they're doing, because that population has grown tremendously. Yeah.
Instead of creating a full Parks and Recreation department, you start to take a baby step. You have only one position as a Parks and Recreation director to begin that process of creating a department. There could be a few other staff that can go under that and have a very small department. But it's indicated for Parks and Recreation, so they can then start to look at implementation of the master plan, and they can also start to look at what other funding opportunities are out there from state and federal level to bring in more recreation amenities within your system. Because unless you have dedicated, responsible people who are doing that, it's really hard and challenging to move that system forward. And as you mentioned, people are already busy, they have already loaded with work, and so to bring in new components is probably not the best action to take at this level. So maybe take the first baby step and hire the first director, and then start to slowly build upon that. So the senior center, the seniors division will stay what they are right now. Eventually, 5-10 years, as we start to see the benefits of loaded services under one umbrella, maybe that's where we will start to see that.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, the one thing I want to add is that any of these changes and this growth of your park system is going to require more resources and more staffing to do it because, true to most places, staff has probably worked very hard in doing as much as they possibly can with the resources that they have, meaning staff and financial resources. So I think recognizing that anything that changes generally is going to require or should more resources in order to move those things forward. Sorry.
I was going to ask about the RDA. It does not include because it's a second that the RDA results likely to this transaction.
I think we can take a look in to see what that result would be.
I wanted to get back to your question about the aquatic facility. One of the action items that we can include in the plan is the county develop a feasibility study for an aquatic facility and do that in partnership with the municipal agencies. So you can find the right place that is accessible for the whole county and a property that can feasibly be able to construct and provide that. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but the problem is right now, we have one city town that has a pool, but it's just a pool. It's not set up for kids to do any, training or anything like that. It doesn't have anything for the seniors to do exercise in, because it's an outdoor pool. We have plenty of pools, but they're privately owned in those areas, like Tim was talking about. We have nothing as far as, and even for the young people, that's a fantastic exercise. But where and how would we put it?
So you can looking at it from the expert level and help you figure out where the gaps are and where it can be. So what we are saying is just do the feasibility study in the future when these start to become a priority.
Okay, we're over our time. Stop time is 6:15. So should you want to wrap up with next steps?
That sounds great. What you can do is develop action items. And we will forward in what we discussed today, and maybe we can share those with you as an email. Maybe the facility that so they can see it as before the adoption. So the next step we have in the process is to conduct a public meeting. So we are working on the dates for those where we will share the green waste plan, we'll share the recommendations with the public, get their feedback on what they feel about those recommendations. And then after that public meeting, we gather all that feedback again, the feedback from you all today, and develop that final master plan. And then we'll bring it back to you for adoption. So with that, I really appreciate everyone's time today and the great discussion we had. Look forward to meeting with you again in the near future. Thank you so much.